I hear you helped a blind woman. Ha, you ruined a crucial business deal for our company just for some useless nobody who won't make a difference in society. Is that it? You always had such noble principles, didn't you? And just so you know, you're fired." These were the words of my boss, John, as he fired me for skipping an important business meeting to help a blind woman. I've always believed in helping others and have tried to fulfill my job with this principle. But in a meritocracy, personal beliefs don't really matter. That's what I thought when I was fired. I knew there would be losses along the way, but I never doubted the path I had chosen. This is my story about how I succeeded without compromising what I believed in, no matter how much it took me off the beaten path or how foolish others thought I was. My name is Michael. Just your average guy working as an MR, a pharmaceutical company. MR stands for medical representative, a job where I explain medications to doctors and pharmacists and sell them. In short, think of me as a salesperson with medicines as my product. Why am I working as an MR now? It all started when I lost my mother to breast cancer at the age of 20. I was raised by a single mom, and her loss left me cursing the world. But with the support of my girlfriend at the time, now my wife Emily, I managed to keep living and looking forward. That's when I decided I wanted to be someone who could save lives. In my sophomore year of college, I began researching medical careers and discovered the role of an MR. I studied on my own while finishing college and eventually landed a job at my current pharmaceutical company. Since becoming a professional, I married Emily, my college sweetheart, and we have a daughter named Sophie. She is already in middle school. A happy family and a dream job. My life might seem smooth sailing, but that's not entirely true. Hey Michael, you're at the bottom of the sales rankings again. You should really focus more on selling. It was Kevin. He is a colleague who joined this company in the same year. Kevin is great at sales, always ranking at the top every month. Thanks for the advice, but I believe in properly explaining and getting understanding before making a sale, right? Noble, but the real world isn't that forgiving. Maybe you should let go of those, principles. That's why you're known as Mr. Useless behind your back, he said. I responded with a wry smile. I have always taken the stance that I explain things properly to people and make sure they understand about the medicine before they buy it, based on the reason why I decided to pursue this job and the experience I have gained in the course of my work. As Kevin said to me earlier, that is exactly what I have been doing. Because the medicines we handle can have a significant impact on people's lives. Ever since losing my mom, I've been driven by the desire to save lives. That's what I don't care about sales rankings. My goal is to ensure doctors are convinced and prescribe our medicines to their patients. That's something I'll never compromise on. Unfortunately, that has left me consistently at the bottom or third from the bottom of the sales rankings. Looks like you're at the bottom again. Turning around to the voice, I saw my boss, the executive director John. Hello John, how are you? How about you? You're giving clients all the unnecessary details as usual, aren't you? His voice, always laced with contempt and mockery, had become all too familiar. I could only respond in silence. Well, just make sure you don't get fired, John said. John patted my shoulder and walked away. He is the executive director, as mentioned before, and a highly capable man. His skills effectively place him in a position equivalent to the CEO's right-hand man. And for him, I was just a convenient outlet for stress. He always ridiculed my performance by mocking my principles. And in the end, he always left, hinting at my possible termination. I really wanted to talk back. In fact, I used to do so in the beginning. But no matter how much I tried to explain my perspective, he would just brush it off with a laugh. After a few repeats of this, when he told me, if you want to work with such high and mighty ideals, first try beating my sales numbers, I was left speechless. And since John was a high-ranking executive, it is easy to imagine how others treated me. Led by John, I was seen and treated as Mr. Useless by superiors, peers, and subordinates alike. Sometimes, I thought about abandoning my approach and working like everyone else, hoping to avoid such treatment. But each time, I shook off the thought, reminding myself it would defeat the purpose of why I took this job. It was one day when I was continuing to work despite my daily worries. A big business opportunity came my way. The client was none other than Dr. Baker, a leading figure in the medical community. The opportunity arose through a doctor at a local hospital I had known since I was a patient as a kid, and now as a customer. This doctor had recommended our new medicine to Dr. Baker. The news caused a stir in the office, because the big deal had landed with Mr. Useless. Way to go. I heard you got a deal with Dr. Baker. John slapping my back enthusiastically. His voice and face lacked the usual mocking tone. Listen, I'm sure you know this, but you have to make this deal a success. No matter what, bring back that contract. This is a major deal for the company, he added. To which I replied, I'll do my best. The client was that Dr. Baker. I was nervous and, of course, wanted to succeed. But I planned to do it my usual way. As always, I intended to explain everything thoroughly and ensure the client fully understood the medication before selling it. Even if this method hadn't yielded great results before, especially with such a high-profile client, I believed in being honest and straightforward. The day of the meeting with Dr. Baker. After numerous simulations and thorough preparations, I and Kevin, who was chosen as my support, were on our way to the hospital to meet Dr. Baker. Man, at this rate, you might even surpass me. As I walked along, responding to Kevin, who said that with a laugh, I don't think that's the case, at that moment. I heard a clattering sound from behind. Turning around, I saw a woman who had fallen. A white cane rolled beside her, indicating she was blind. Are you okay? I rushed over without thinking. As I approached, it was apparent she had scraped her knee in the fall. The wound was visible through her torn stockings. As the woman began to speak, someone called out from behind, "Hey, what are you doing?" It was Kevin. He continued, "This isn't the time for that." That reminded me of the business meeting. But I just couldn't bring myself to leave the woman and go to the meeting. "What happened to you?" I asked the woman, who seemed flustered, and she said, "I need to get home quickly. I'm in a hurry." She explained that she had received a call from her daughter, who was home looking after her 5-year-old son, saying that he had collapsed. Her daughter was still in elementary school and didn't know what to do. She had tried calling her husband, but he didn't answer the phone. So, she was hurrying home. She continued, "Understood, let's head to your home first. I'll hail a taxi. Just wait a moment," I said. Despite Kevin calling out "hey" to me, I didn't respond to him. I hailed a taxi, led the woman into it, and joined her. In the taxi, I called 911 and headed to the woman's home. We arrived at her home before the ambulance did. I supported the frantic woman to her front door and waited outside after making sure she entered her house. The ambulance arrived shortly after. I explained the situation to the paramedics and assured them inside. After a while of hectic activity from the paramedics, the woman came out. Her son had been examined and fortunately, it wasn't serious. Relieved, I was about to leave when the woman said, "I'd like to thank you. Could you tell me your name and the name of your company?" I saw no reason not to, so I honestly introduced myself and left my business card. "Just in case, please have your husband verify this later," and then left her house. After leaving, I hailed another taxi to head to the hospital. In the taxi, checking my phone, I saw an unprecedented number of missed calls, emails, and message notifications. Feeling heavy-hearted, I headed to the hospital, where the business meeting was supposed to be, only to find Dr. Baker had already left. Returning to the office, I was immediately met with John's angry voice. "What have you done?" he yelled. I quickly apologized. "I'm sorry." But I immediately tried to explain. "Actually, there was this woman who had collapsed." John interrupted me, saying irritably, "I heard from Kevin. You helped a blind woman. Ha! You ruined a crucial business deal for our company just for some nobody who won't make a difference in society. Is that it? You and your ever so noble principles? Or is it that? Did you feel sympathy because you're both useless?" His harsh words left me speechless for a moment. What a way to put it. I tried to continue. "That's not it at all," but John cut me off. "Shut up. It's the truth," John continued, with a much sterner look than usual. "And just so you know, you're fired. You really became Mr. Useless, who is good for nothing. Hot damn, if only that deal had gone through, we could have solidified our company's position." I watched as John walked away. Then he turned back and said, "What are you standing around for? Get started on your resignation and hand over and leave. I don't want to see your face anymore." After that, I mechanically did as told, preparing for my resignation and handing over my responsibilities before heading home. On the train back, all I could think about was how to explain this to my wife and daughter. "I'm home," I said, entering the house with a much heavier heart than usual. "Hi, Michael," came the reply from inside. Entering the living room, my wife Emily looked concerned. "What's wrong? You look pale," she asked. I hesitated for a moment. I didn't want to lie. After some contemplation, I decided to be honest. "The truth is, I got fired." "Fired?" both Emily and my daughter Sophie exclaimed in unison. "Why? Did you do something wrong?" asked a surprised Sophie. "No, I didn't do anything wrong, but..." I explained about the major business deal today, how I stopped to help a blind woman I found collapsed on the way, and how that made me late for the meeting, leading to my termination. "Indeed, I didn't do anything wrong, but being fired, what are we going to do? We have some savings, so we might manage for a while, but Sophie's exams are coming up soon," Emily and Sophie continued. It was the reaction I expected. The atmosphere in the living room was heavier than it had ever been. "I'll try hard to find a new job soon." That was all I could say. Then, the next day, still dragging the heavy air of yesterday, I left my uncomfortable home for the last cleanup at the office. As soon as I arrived, I was summoned to the president's office. Considering what John had said about the incident being a big deal for the company, I thought maybe the president himself was going to fire me, and with that thought, I headed to his office. I knocked at the door 3 times. Immediately, a voice from inside said, "Come in." "Excuse me." With a heavy heart, yet consciously trying not to let it show in my voice or on my face, I opened the door. And I was surprised by the scene that unfolded before me. There in the room were the president, Dr. Baker, and the blind woman I had helped the day before. "Michael, right, thank you for yesterday. My son is safe thanks to you," she said. No, I didn't do anything special," I hastily replied as the woman bowed her head. Straightening up, she smiled and continued. "I apologize for not introducing myself yesterday. I am Emma Baker, the daughter of Dr. Baker here." I was stunned for a moment, not quite processing what she had said. During that pause, Dr. Baker, who had been silent until then, began to speak. "Yesterday, you saved my daughter and consequently my grandson. Had you not been there for my daughter, my grandson's life might have been at risk. I'm truly grateful. Thank you." Saying this, Dr. Baker also bowed his head. Startled, I hurriedly managed to say something. "Please, don't mention it. Raise your head. You did something to be proud of. No need to be modest," said Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker meeting my eyes and smiling just like Miss Baker had. "Furthermore, after learning that you were the one who helped my daughter yesterday, I contacted your company. I explained the situation and learned that you had been fired. I asked the president to reconsider. Shocked by his words, I turned my gaze to the president. The president nodded with a complex expression, a mix of happiness and concern. In other words, you're not fired. Stunned by the sudden turn of events, I could only gape as Dr. Baker continued with a smile. Now, can we get back to business? Please, tell me about the new medicine. Somehow, I managed to respond, yes, of course. I prepared the documents and began explaining the new medicine to Dr. Baker. As usual, I explained everything, including both the merits and demerits, ensuring he understood every aspect of the medicine throughout the discussion. That concludes my explanation. Do you have any questions? Still feeling nervous, my mouth was dry by the time I finished speaking. Well, I do have one question, Dr. Baker said. Yes, what is it? I asked, nervously wondering if there had been any oversight. Why did you explain all aspects of the new medicine to me, not just the good, but also the bad? It's because. The answer flowed smoothly, despite it not being part of any simulation. I spoke about my wish to save lives, a wish I had since losing my mother. Medications are directly prescribed to patients, so I always want doctors to understand both the advantages and disadvantages before making a contract. I explained to every client, ensuring they fully understood the medication before I sold it. Dr. Baker smiled satisfactorily at my explanation. You are a good MR. We'll use this new medicine. And so, what seemed like a huge blunder turned into a great success. 6 months later, the deal was a turning point for me. I was promoted, and my standing in the company changed. I could reassure my family and was living happily. As for John, who had tried to fire me, his past misdeeds came to light following the incident, and he was demoted from his position as executive director. Now, he works under me as a regular employee in sales. And today, we're going out for a family dinner to celebrate my promotion. As I was about to leave work on time, Kevin approached me. Sorry, can I talk to you for a minute? Just 5 minutes. I have something to say. I checked my watch and agreed. You know, you're amazing. You really went above and beyond me. It was just good luck. No, it wasn't. It's all about the effort you've put in. As he said this, Kevin bought a can of coffee and handed it to me. I gratefully accepted it and opened it. Actually, I've always admired you. Really, you always maintained the integrity that I gave up on, right? Despite being ostracized by others and ridiculed by superiors, I just didn't have the strength to do that. So, I've always been envious of you. I was surprised by his sudden confession. Seeing my surprise, Kevin gave a small smile and continued. That's why, when you succeeded like this, I was happy too. I've always wanted to say this. Congratulations. With that, Kevin said, sorry to hold you up. You must have plans, right? And then left. I left the office feeling refreshed and surprised. The feeling was incomparably better than the day I was told I was fired. I was greeted with warm voices from my family as soon as I got home.